Hello, fellow parents and educators. Thank you for joining me at Education Evolution, where we are disrupting the status quo in today's learning models. We talk about present-day education, what's broken, who's fixing it, and how. I'm Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your host and founder of Education Evolution and the Microschool Coalition, where we are fiercely committed to changing the narrative, to reimagining the education landscape and creating learning that serves all children and prepares them to thrive. Hey, Larry, it is so great to have you today.
Thanks, Maureen. I'm grateful to be here, and thanks so much for allowing me to be part of this conversation today.
Absolutely. And listeners, today I'm chatting with Larry J. Snyder. He's a philanthropist, and I can't wait for him to share with you some of his provocative questions and strategies that leverage unique gifts. And this can help our youth. We want them to see themselves as part of a cycle of philanthropy that makes our world a better place. Larry, let's start with, why is philanthropy such a huge priority in your life?
Really, it comes down to two words for me, and it's really the genesis of why philanthropy is my path. And I've been grateful to have this path be most of my life for the last 20 years. The two words that come as my wayfinders are the word honor and the word service. And so to kind of unpack that a little bit, I was grateful in that I grew up in a family of community leaders. My grandfather, whose name was Chuck, built a wonderful community business enterprise in Burien, South Seattle. And my mother created a set of schools, and some of this will all start to become familiar with why Lead and I and you are connected. But I honor my mother and I honor my grandfather every day of my life because they've given me this path that I walk on. And so that's really the genesis of my life, but it's also the genesis of every day of my life now.
Love that. Honor and service and the tribute to your parents. And I know we've been grateful at Lead Prep that early days when we were a brand new school and wanted to do an auction, that you weren't just about the fundraiser. And I know you work with a lot of nonprofits, but you were so generous with ideas on how Lead Prep could thrive as a school. And you were so connected to our community. So everything you do, I get the sense that it's much more than a transaction, that you are about honor and service. So that makes perfect sense. And I want to segue in. I remember going to your book launch, and it was amazing. It was really so much more than a traditional book launch when you were celebrating Which One Am I? And the message was powerful, and how you played it out at the book launch, and we got to live it. Can you tell us about this message? To me, this takes your philanthropy back to each of us as an individual, and I want our listeners to hear about it.
Sure. I think probably what might be helpful, just for context, is to give your listeners an opportunity to know where the title came from. Which one am I? I was fortunate enough to be on a education mission in West Africa in about 4 years ago. And I am also a photographer. And one of the things that I was told by other photographers is, please be careful taking pictures of children in villages in Africa. You just have to make sure that you have the permission of everyone involved, not just the nonprofit that you're traveling with, but also the community leadership. They call them tribal leaders. And so I was kind of reluctant to take pictures, but I was on a play field way out in the jungle in West Africa and in Sierra Leone. And these kids were all lined up in front of this beautiful school, and they were singing the national anthem of Sierra Leone. And then when they were done, it was their time to run around the field. They ran around the field, and there was a handful of girls that kind of ran up and got semi close to me, and one of them pointed at my camera and said, "Snap me, snap me." And I hadn't heard that term since. I mean, that comes from the days of when you used to put the bulb inside the big hood, and then it snapped and flashed. And so,
Oh.
anyway, snap me now, of course, with Snapchat means something different, but it's the same thing, and that is a photo. They were asking me to take their picture, so they leaned down, and I got kind of low down with them, and there was this beautiful set of palm trees behind, in the sky in Sierra Leone is a particular color that's hard to describe without seeing a picture of it yourself. But anyway, so I took this picture, and all of them but one girl ran away giggling, and this little girl was looking, because we have a digital camera, you turn the camera around, show the picture. Anyway, so I showed her the screen, and she was looking at it and studying it. And she looked in my eyes and looked back at the screen, and then looked at my eyes again. And she whispered something. They speak English at these schools, but it's not their native language, so it comes with a very heavy accent. So I kind of leaned way down and asked her to say what she was saying into my ear. And she said to me, "Which one am I?" She had never
Whoa.
seen, Maureen, she'd never seen a
Ah,
picture of herself. And
ah,
what that told me is that something very clearly, when she said that to me, I thought about my mom. And the reason I thought about my mom is because both this little girl in West Africa and my mother were living from a place inside themselves and not as a reflection of how they felt about themselves. That's a completely different mindset that I have taken from that moment out into the world every day. Which one am I? And so that's really the genesis of the name of that book. But that book was really a mission of mine to thank my mother for this gift of humanity that she's given me. And so that little girl and my mom, who were 9,000 miles apart at the time, have very much a similar mindset, which then I became part of that story as well. So,
whoa. Love that. And I remember at the book launch, there were so many different ways of leading and serving and being filled with that honor, and just examples of people in the community that were giving back. And the one that sticks out in my mind was the hairdressers
yeah.
that had organized to make sure that homeless people had that dignity and had those services available. So what kinds of things are in the book that could guide us into deeper philanthropy?
The book became somewhat of a living document, in that I thought that I was writing a story about my mother, but as I penned her story, I realized I knew dozens of people just like my mom. And so I was working with the publisher, and I asked him a question: what would happen if we did a pivot here, and instead of writing the story about my mom, that we wrote a story about my mom and 12 people that embodied the qualities of her life. And Ethan, who's the publisher, who I believe you had a chance to meet at that event, he said that's exactly what you should do if you're trying to spread the message that everybody has a way to serve. And that's how, as you know, the book turned out. It's 12 chapters plus my mother's story as the epilogue. And each one of these people are people, frankly, just like you and me. They have found this way to honor someone else in service, and that's where honor and service come together. And like you were talking about, the Beyond Project, which is a Rachel Hiles organization, her way of serving is to take the training that she has as a beauty professional, gather other beauty professionals together that want to serve, and go and be part of some of these large happenings like the United Way Community Resource Fair, where they do 350 haircuts in 7 or 8 hours. So
Wow.
I know, but see, that Rachel's a great example of someone that has taken that convened a bunch of people who have similar, the shape of their hearts are similar to hers, and solved a problem in the community. And so that's one example of, as you know, in that book, 12 different people who have found this way to serve. And that's really meaningful. I actually had a great conversation with Rachel. She's opening her second office, and it's down in Los Angeles, to serve the 60,000 homeless people that live in and around central Los Angeles.
Boy. So Larry, how would you suggest, and you have a middle school daughter, how are you raising her? How would you suggest parents and educators help our kids see their unique gifts and want to use them in service to honor others?
I think the first thing that's the most important is to kind of look at those people who influence your life. And I'm talking about now specifically my daughter. The conversations that we have are about how we got here. And what I mean by that is when we look back, sitting, say, at the counter, eating breakfast, we got here because of my grandfather, obviously, and my grandmother, right? The DNA and the genesis and the family tree. But inside that family tree, what was important to them? And how can we honor them? And how can we basically provide service in our own community in their honor? And so one of the ways for kids, Danielle is 14, that they can participate is just about every community has a homeless organization that needs meals on a daily basis. Kids, if they want to make their favorite cookies, can make those favorite cookies, and the mom or dad can take them to the shelter for them. That's one way. Another way is right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and who's on the front line that we could write notes to? Doctors, nurses, mental health workers, first responders. If all those kids did was just break open some stationery and write a note of thanks, and perhaps if you're artistic, an image that says what you want to say, and all of the addresses and names and everything are easily discoverable online. So that's one way. Those are a couple of different ways. But to me, I really would like these kids to figure out what they want to do, not what I think is a good idea for them to do. And so to me, using that big brain in their head by just getting the conversation going about what they are called to do is what I like to refer to as authorship. And authorship values the ability to think, doesn't even have to be critical thinking. It just comes from a place of compassion and also the desire to identify someone in the community that you want to say thank you to.
Love that. And just starting those conversations and helping kids reflect so that they can take that authorship. That sounds like a first step that every one of our youth could be doing with the help of some mentoring from the adults in their lives.
Yeah, I
So
think also one other quick reference that I want to make sure people are aware of is a program called TEDx Youth. And TEDx, as most people know, is kind of the database for the video database for thought leaders. And there isn't any subject that you cannot discover ideas around from TEDx. But for youth, in particular, TEDx Youth is a fantastic resource of listening to what other kids are doing in their communities, who they're honoring, who they're serving. And that one kid talking to another is a lot better than parents trying to tell their kid one more time the things they should be doing.
uh-huh. That is a brilliant resource. Lead Prep is hoping to be able to sponsor a TEDx youth next spring. And we've been coordinating with the Edmonds Woodway student that is amazing and has done that at her high school. I agree. Getting to hear from their peers is so powerful. So thank you for mentioning that resource. That's great. I have one last question for you, Larry. So if you had a magic wand, what gift would you bestow upon our youth to help them step into their unique gifts and create a better world?
I really do think that my magic wand would truly be honoring those that made your life available to you. Because I get that not every family setup was filled with as much goodness as mine. I get that. I understand that. But family is one thing. Family of friends are the family that you choose. And those people have most likely, whether it was, again, a fourth grade teacher that complimented you that you never forgot, whether it is a friend on a playground that helped you realize that you too could be involved in soccer on the play field. Honoring those people would be my magic wand, because I've seen, not just in my own life, but in the lives of many around me, yourself included, where you look at every human being as someone with intrinsic value, but also the opportunity to recognize and say, you matter to me. And I think that's one of the two words that get left off, which kind of kills me in a way, when people use the term that you matter. I love that term, but what I matter more is the other two words that should be attached to it, and that is to me. So you matter to me. I'm saying that to you right now, Maureen, because you really do matter to me. What you're doing in the world and what Lead Prep is doing and what your teachers are having the opportunity to do matters to me. And that's why I serve Lead Prep, is because it matters to me.
Wow, that is so powerful, and I'm really touched. Larry, thank you. Your message is so timeless and important, and something we can be doing whether we're in a pandemic or not. So thank you so much for being our guest today.
You're welcome. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I look forward to serving Lead Prep more and just serving the world to, again, lift and honor others, because it matters to me.
To you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Larry's response on his why reminds me of Simon Sinek's TED Talk, telling us to start with why. If our kids can think of who has made big positive contributions in their lives and then choose to honor those people, there is the why that's foundational for philanthropy. We want our kids to feel connected and knowing that they are honoring grandparents or that soccer coach that invested so much in them by their service creates that connection, and it helps foster the whole identity of being a philanthropist. There's also an iconic movie from 20 years ago, Pay It Forward, that comes to mind. The movie focused on a teen giving back deeply and the ripples that were created. Powerful movie and still a relevant message today. This whole idea of honoring others and paying it forward, that is the honor and service. Honor, service. Those two words that Larry uses as his wayfinders. Lead Prep's interdisciplinary studies allow kids to learn their strengths, investigate their passions, and create service to others. And I love honoring my own parents' legacy by serving our Lead Prep community and as a consultant to other schools on these learner-centered studies that create meaningful opportunities for philanthropy in our students. I think it's important as adults that we identify and model this for our students to make it external so they start to see the connections, honor and service. Be sure to check out our show notes for links to ways Larry can be of service to you and for other resources mentioned today. I know how challenging it is to make changes inside your own school or community. I've spent years working with schools around the world on creating learner-centered programs, and it always struck me how much schools were able to get done with the right tools and guidance. If you're ready to make changes like this in your own school, let's talk and put together an action plan. Visit educationevolution.org/consult for a free 15-minute call, and let's see if we're a good fit for more work together. Education Evolution listeners, you are the ones to ensure we create classrooms where each student is seen, heard, valued, and thriving. We need you. Let's go out and reach every student today. I'd be so grateful if you'd head over to your podcast app and give a great rating and review if you found this interview valuable. Thank you for listening. Signing off, I am Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your partner in boldly reimagining education.